وإن تتولوا يستبدل قوما غيركم ثم لا يكونوا امثالكم. اللهم استخدمنا ولا تستبدلنا.
في مصر تمر سفن الاحتلال المحملة بالمتفجرات بلا عوائق، تعبر منسابة نحو أطفال غزة لتحرق بحممها أجسادهم النحيلة المجوعة وهم مشردون في الخيام، لكنها تغلق الأبواب بإحكام في وجه قافلة الصمود التي جاءت لا تحمل ذخيرة ولا قنابل، بل قلوبا من شتى بقاع الأرض تفيض حسرة على إخوة يبادون جهارا نهارا منذ زهاء العامين.
النهار يا للعار باعوا غزة بالدولة، يا للعار يا للعار باعوا غزة بالدولة.
On October 6, 1981, the world was stunned by the images. The man of peace with Israel, the first Arab to dare reach out to the Hebrew state, falls to the bullets of a commando of Muslim fanatics. In Egypt, it was the autumn of anger. Sadat's policy of economic openness has created serious social tensions. Barely a month ago, he had 1,600 religious and communist opponents arrested. He expelled the Soviet ambassador. Sadat knows his life is in danger, but he is confident he is wrong. Said Marey, Minister of Agriculture, was next to the president at the time of the attack. They are very close. His son married one of Sadat's daughters.
It was the day before of his death. We discussed the political measures we were going to take and above all the great roundup he had ordered against communists and religious groups. I analyzed the situation with him. Why, how, and when would it all stop? Finally, we talked about this kind of problem.
On the evening of October 5th, Anwar Sadat was at home with his family. He spent 3/4 of an hour on the phone with Musa Sabri, the Egyptian journalist who was to become his biographer. They had known each other for 30 years.
The night before he died, I spoke to him on the phone. It was before his death, a few days before. He left Cairo by train. You see, he wanted to visit an important town in the Delta, Kantho, and you can't imagine the wonderful welcome he received on arrival. Men, women, young people, everyone was waiting for him. He was very happy about this welcome. He was really happy. And he considered it a new election for him. So he was very satisfied, very happy.
It was in this house in Gizeh, a district of Cairo, that the president spent his last evening and night with his wife, children, and grandchildren.
Yasmin was with her grandfather the night before he was assassinated. He was putting the finishing touches to his speech for the following day. Yasmin played and heckled like all children. Despite all his responsibilities and obligations, I could tell that he never forgot his family. October 6th is a date we're proud of. After many defeats, it's the first time the Egyptian army has won a major victory against Israel. We won the war.
Sadat's valet wakes him up on the morning of October 6th. They came from the same village.
On the last day, the day of his assassination, he came to sit in his office. Minister Mubarak came to visit him in the morning, as did the Minister of Defense, Abu Ghazala. They went out with the president. He said goodbye. That was the last time I saw him.
It's 10:30. Sadat, in full uniform, leaves for the parade.
Especially in the last month, he kept saying that he was going to leave this world soon. And I was surprised because this wasn't the Sadat I knew. It wasn't him, you see, it wasn't like him at all. Sadat was very strong, very sure of himself. He didn't live in a dream or in a cradle of illusion. He was very realistic, to the core. Sadat was very happy to have done something for future generations. He spoke of peace, of course. He was always thanking God for giving him the opportunity to do what he had done with the Camp David Accords. He would say, "Now I feel my mission is over and it's up to someone else to carry on and move forward."
At the time, he was a little nervous. He wasn't very comfortable. We were all thinking about the measures we were going to have to take against the opponents.
At the beginning of October 1980, behind the walls of the sinister Torah prison, the fiercest opponents of his policies were locked up for years, an excellent pretext for Islamic extremists to step up their agitation.
When President Sadat arrested the fundamentalists in the first week of September, the fundamentalists, the word was out that the fundamentalists wouldn't take it lying down and that they were out for revenge.
President Sadat was very confident that nothing would happen to him. He considered October 6th to be the feast day of all Egypt. Of course, it was the army's day and had to be celebrated with a big ceremony. So he took no special security measures beyond the usual precautions.
Makram Gadel Karim is one of Egypt's most famous press photographers. He was on the front line in Sinai. On the morning of October 6th, he was standing in the middle of the shooting.
I was in charge of taking photos on the day of the ceremony. I was the only one who got into his car. He saluted the crowd, then got out of his car to put flowers on the tomb of the unknown soldier. Then he returned to his seat, and the parade began.
11:30. Leading his detachment of cadets, Colonel Mohammed Naguib opened the parade. He was the first to salute Sadat.
Everywhere it was a celebration, as it is every year. We marched at the head of the parade. President Sadat's car and the tanks opened the march so that the people could march behind us. Well, at the same time, we provided security.
As the parade unfolded, people looked up at the paratroopers and planes releasing plumes of colorful smoke. Spectators were enthralled by the display, and then suddenly the attack began.
Farouk Fouli, cameraman for American television, was filming the military parade when suddenly detonations erupted.
There was an artillery unit pulled by trucks, moving along like that. I was over there with my camera, and at that moment I heard several explosions. So I quickly turned around to that side. That's when I saw soldiers running towards the stands, screaming. They were running and shooting at the same time. It was all very confusing. So I ran. All the way here.
I felt the blast of the bullets and looked beside me. There was a soldier with a Kalashnikov, and there was another one on the other side of the stands. I saw another soldier pointing his gun at President Sadat. It's precisely 2 minutes past 12.
This is the last photo of Sadat alive. 2 seconds later, a bullet pierces his throat. He was killed.
Where there was panic everywhere, with people running in all directions, throwing themselves under chairs. The president was the only one left standing, asking what's going on. At that moment, I was hit and fell. The guard was arriving. I was still conscious enough to understand what was happening. The officers surrounded President Sadat. He wasn't bleeding, but I was sure he was dead.
The shooting lasted 54 seconds, with 5 dead and 38 wounded.
I went straight to Mahadi Hospital. I entered the room and saw my husband lying on a bed. The doctors were there, the nurses. Everyone was crying. It was something I can't put into words. It was like a nightmare. So I went to see Vice President Mubarak and said, "Mr. President, you have to take care of Egypt now, because Sadat is gone."
7 hours after the attack, the new president, Hosni Mubarak, announced the death of Anwar al-Sadat. The members of the commando were all dead and their leader captured. 2 years later, he was shot. But did they really want to assassinate Sadat?
I'm pretty sure that the men who carried out the attack weren't just trying to kill Sadat. You don't try to assassinate a single man with grenades.
I think the attack was aimed at the political system, since in the logic of the fundamentalists, they want to change the government. They want a government that is purely theocratic.
This man is famous among religious extremists. He is Sheikh Malawi. A month before Sadat's execution, he was imprisoned. His arrest may well have triggered the plot. Surrounded by hundreds of followers, Sheikh Malawi arrived in Alexandria for Friday prayers.
By this time, people no longer trusted Sadat at all. Sadat himself told me so. I was very happy that things were going badly for him. Sadat wouldn't listen to anyone. Still, I would have preferred him to get me out of prison. We would have worked together hand in hand and solved many of the problems he had created. At that point, I could still do something for him. It wasn't too late.
Sheikh Malawi's preaching circulated throughout Egypt and the Arab world on cassette tapes, just as Ayatollah Khomeini's had done in the past.
Everyone was against Sadat. In my opinion, the man committed suicide.
He had no choice. He could do nothing else.
The 6th of October 1980 was, in fact, an attempted coup d'etat to plunge Egypt into the camp of the Islamic Revolution. Sadat's death was a mere detail. Before their judges, the 24 conspirators asserted that they had worked for the glory of God.